Dr. Emily Brooks wiped the sweat from her forehead as the twin sons of Kepler 442b beat down mercilessly. She'd been digging in this godforsaken red dirt for 3 months now, and honestly, she was starting to think this whole expedition was a waste of time. The colony had sent a team out here based on some weird magnetic readings, but so far all they'd found were rocks. Lots and lots of rocks. "Hey Emily, come look at this." Tyler's voice crackled through her helmet radio. He was 20 meters away, frantically waving his arms like he'd just won the lottery. Emily trudged over, her boots kicking up rusty dust with each step. Tyler was on his knees, brushing away dirt from something that definitely wasn't a rock. It was smooth. Too smooth. Black as midnight and polished like glass, catching the sunlight in a way that made her eyes hurt if she stared too long. "What the hell is that?" she muttered, kneeling beside him. "I don't know, but look how big it is." Tyler activated his ground-penetrating scanner, and both of them went quiet as the readings came back. The structure beneath their feet was massive. It stretched down at least 100 meters and covered an area the size of 3 football fields. The geometry was perfect. Impossibly perfect. Nature didn't work like this. Emily's heart started pounding. Humanity had only been on this planet for 15 years. The colony was barely established, just a few thousand people trying to make a new home. There shouldn't be anything here. No ruins. No ancient civilizations. The surveys before colonization had been thorough. This planet was supposed to be completely dead except for some basic microbes. "Run the dating scan," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tyler's hands were shaking as he adjusted the equipment. The machine hummed, analyzing isotopes and radiation decay. When the number appeared on the screen, Tyler actually gasped. 50,000 years old. Minimum. He looked at Emily with wide eyes. "That's impossible. That predates our arrival by everything. Who built this?" Emily didn't answer. She was too busy staring at the exposed section of the structure. There were patterns etched into the surface, so faint they were almost invisible. They looked like writing, but not any language she'd ever seen. Her fingers reached out almost on their own, drawn to touch the smooth black surface. "Wait, don't," Tyler started to warn her, but it was too late. The moment Emily's bare hand made contact with the structure, everything changed. The world exploded with light. Brilliant, blinding white light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Emily tried to pull her hand back, but she couldn't move. Her palm was stuck to the surface like it had been glued there. The black structure wasn't black anymore. It was alive with color, with patterns, with symbols that flowed across its surface like water. The strange writing she'd seen before was moving now, shifting and changing, rearranging itself into new configurations. And then, impossibly, the symbols became letters she could read. English letters. Genetic match confirmed. "Welcome back, Founder." Emily's blood turned to ice. The words hovered in the air in front of her face, glowing with that same impossible light. Tyler was shouting something, but she couldn't hear him over the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then came the voice. Deep, calm, ancient. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating in her bones. Architect class DNA detected. Systems online. Awaiting instructions. What are you?" Emily managed to choke out. "I am the Codex. I have been waiting 53,742 years for your return." The light intensified, and suddenly Emily wasn't standing on the dusty surface of Kepler 442b anymore. She was floating in space, surrounded by stars. Except they weren't just stars. They were marked. Tagged. Each one had information flowing around it in streams of data she somehow understood. "What is this?" she breathed. "The network," the Codex replied. 847 installations across the galaxy. All built by your ancestors. All waiting for the founders to return. The star map zoomed out, showing the entire galaxy. Emily could see the installations marked like beacons, scattered across thousands of light years. But something was wrong. Many of them were red instead of blue. Dark. Dead. 612 sites have gone silent, the Codex said, its voice carrying a weight of sorrow. "We do not know why. We have been alone for millennia." Emily's mind was racing, trying to process what she was seeing. This was insane. This was impossible. Humanity had evolved on Earth. They had fossil records, genetic lineages, archaeological evidence going back millions of years. They were newcomers to space, barely crawling out of their solar system. They didn't build galaxy-spanning networks of ancient alien installations. "There's been a mistake," she said. I'm human. We're from Earth. We didn't build any of this. The Codex was quiet for a moment, as if considering her words. Then it spoke again, and Emily wished it hadn't. Your understanding of your own history is incomplete. The genetic markers in your DNA are unmistakable. You carry the legacy of the progenitors. You are a founder, whether you remember or not. The vision faded, and Emily slammed back into her body so hard she fell backward into the dirt. Tyler was there immediately, helping her up, his face pale with shock. Emily, what just happened? You were glowing. The whole structure was glowing. And I swear I heard voices. Emily couldn't answer. She was staring at her hand, the one that had touched the structure. There was a mark there now, a faint pattern of lines that glowed softly blue before fading into her skin. It didn't hurt, but she could feel it. Like a piece of the Codex had bonded to her. Around them, the entire installation was coming to life. Sections of the structure were rising from the ground, shedding thousands of years of dust and rock. Lights were activating deep beneath the surface. And in Emily's head, she could hear the Codex whispering, patient and eternal. Welcome home, Founder. We have much to discuss. Emily looked up at the sky, at the stars she thought she knew, and realized that everything she believed about humanity's place in the universe had just been shattered. And this was only the beginning. The colonial authorities didn't waste any time. Within 6 hours of the incident, Emily found herself locked in a sterile white room at the colony's medical facility. They called it protective quarantine, but she knew what it really was. They thought she was contaminated, infected, or worse. Maybe they thought she'd lost her mind. Dr. Patricia Chen, the colony's chief medical officer, had run every test imaginable. Blood work, brain scans, genetic sequencing, psychological evaluations. Everything came back normal, except for one thing. Emily's DNA had markers they'd never seen before. Sequences that shouldn't exist in human genetics. Patricia couldn't explain it, and that terrified everyone. Emily sat on the edge of the medical bed, staring at her hands. The glowing mark had faded completely, but she could still feel it. Like a phantom limb. Like something was there even when it wasn't visible. That's when the Codex appeared. One moment she was alone, the next there was a figure standing in the corner of her room. Made entirely of blue light, flickering like a hologram, but more solid somehow. More real. It had a vaguely humanoid shape but no distinct features. Just light and energy taking form. Don't be afraid, it said in that same ancient voice. Emily nearly fell off the bed. How are you here? The installation is 20 kilometers away. Distance is irrelevant. I am bonded to your biosignature now. Where you go, I can follow. The Codex moved closer, its form rippling like water. The others cannot see or hear me. Only you. Emily glanced at the security camera in the corner. From its perspective, she was talking to empty air. Great. Now they definitely think she was crazy. What do you want from me? She asked. To show you the truth. To help you understand what you are. The Codex raised what might have been an arm, and suddenly the room disappeared. Emily gasped. She was standing in space again, but this time it was different. She was looking at Earth, except it wasn't the Earth she knew. Cities of light covered every continent. Structures stretched from the ground into orbit, impossibly tall towers that pierced the atmosphere. Ships moved between them like schools of fish, thousands upon thousands of vessels. 75,000 years ago, the Codex said, humanity looked like this. That's impossible, Emily whispered. 75,000 years ago, we were barely using stone tools. We were hunter-gatherers in Africa. We have fossils. We have evidence. You have what you were meant to find, the Codex replied. The truth is more complex. The vision shifted. Now Emily was looking at dozens of different worlds, all connected by lines of light. Ships traveled between them in seconds. Each planet was transformed, covered in cities and green spaces, perfectly balanced ecosystems managed by technologies that seemed like magic. Your ancestors called themselves the progenitors. They didn't just explore the galaxy. They shaped it. They seeded hundreds of worlds with life, creating the conditions for new species to evolve. They built wonders that defied physics. They conquered disease, aging, death itself. They were gods in all but name. Emily's head was spinning. This couldn't be real. But the vision was so vivid, so detailed. She could see individual people walking through those alien cities. Humans. They looked different, taller, more refined somehow, but definitely human. If all this is true, Emily said slowly, then what happened? Where did it all go? The Codex's light dimmed. They achieved immortality, and it destroyed them. The scene changed again, darker now. Emily saw cities burning. Ships fighting in orbit. Worlds reduced to ash. But these weren't battles against some external enemy. These were humans fighting humans. Brother against sister. Parent against child. Immortality without death created beings without consequence, the Codex explained. After living for thousands of years, empathy faded. Morality became flexible. The oldest progenitors saw other beings as toys, as experiments, as property. They had lived so long they forgot what it meant to be mortal. To be vulnerable. To care. Emily watched in horror as a progenitor casually destroyed an entire colony because it displeased them. Millions dead in seconds, and the being responsible showed no more emotion than someone swatting a fly. The younger progenitors, those who still remembered what it meant to feel, realized what they were becoming, the Codex continued. They understood that their civilization was a plague. That immortality had turned them into monsters. So they made a choice. The vision showed a gathering. Thousands of progenitors, the ones who still had souls, meeting in secret. They looked desperate, haunted, terrified of what they'd become. They chose to end it, Emily breathed. Yes. But not through war. They had seen enough death. Instead, they created the silence. They systematically destroyed their own technology. Wiped their databases. Dismantled their cities. Then they did something even more radical. The scene shifted to show laboratories, genetic facilities, places where the very code of life was being rewritten. They reset themselves. They took populations of progenitors and altered their genetics, made them mortal again, gave them false evolutionary histories. They scattered these populations across dozens of worlds and erased their memories. Earth was one such world. Your ancestors were progenitors who chose to forget, to start over as if they'd never been gods at all. Emily felt tears streaming down her face. They gave up everything. To save everything, the Codex agreed. They encrypted their installations, locked away their most dangerous technologies. They designed the encryption to only respond to specific genetic markers. Markers carried by individuals who retained empathy, who possessed the capacity for moral reasoning even when given power. The Codex's form moved closer, its light washing over Emily. You are not special by accident, Emily Brooks. Your genetic line has been shaped over 75,000 years, guided by the encryption protocols your ancestors created. Every generation selecting for compassion, for wisdom, for the ability to make hard choices. You exist because the progenitors hoped that someday, someone like you would find what they left behind and understand why it must never be used carelessly. Emily was back in her medical room, gasping for air. The vision had felt like hours, but the clock showed only seconds had passed. The Codex stood silently, waiting. This is insane, Emily said. Even if it's true, why tell me? Why now? Because you are not the only one searching for the truth, the Codex replied. Others remember fragments of the old stories. Others worship the progenitors as gods and seek to restore what was lost. And they are coming here. They detected my activation. They know a founder has returned. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flooded the room. Emily ran to the window and looked up at the sky. There, hanging in orbit like dark angels, were ships. Not human ships. Alien vessels, dozens of them, their hulls covered in symbols that made Emily's head hurt to look at. Who are they? She whispered. The karate, the Codex said grimly. They evolved on one of the worlds your ancestors seeded. Unlike humanity, they never forgot their creators. They have been searching the galaxy for installations like mine for thousands of years. They believe the founders will return and restore paradise. Emily's blood ran cold. What do they want? You, the Codex replied. They want you to unlock the archives. To activate the restoration protocols. To bring back the progenitor's glory. And what would that actually do? The Codex's light flickered like a candle in the wind. It would reactivate every weapon system the progenitors created. It would give the karate the power to reshape the galaxy as they see fit. It would be the silence all over again, but worse. Emily looked at the ships in orbit, then back at the Codex. I won't help them. I know, the Codex said softly. That is why you were chosen. But they will not accept refusal. They have waited too long, sacrificed too much. They will take what they want by force if necessary. Emily's hands clenched into fists. 75,000 years ago, Her ancestors had made an impossible choice to save the galaxy from themselves. Now she was being asked to do the same thing. The door to her room burst open. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn, shouting orders. But Emily barely heard them. She was staring at the alien ships and wondering if humanity was about to learn that some legacies were better left buried. The alien ships didn't attack. That was somehow worse than if they had. They just waited in orbit, silent and watching, like vultures circling a dying animal. The entire colony was on high alert. Every civilian had been moved to underground shelters. The militia, such as it was, had their pathetic weapons trained on the sky, knowing full well they'd be useless against technology that could cross the stars. Emily stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by nervous officials who kept glancing at her like she was a bomb about to explode. Governor Richards, a gray-haired woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days, was arguing with someone over the comms. "I don't care what your protocols say. We have alien warships in orbit and they're asking specifically for one of our people. We need reinforcements from Earth, and we need them now." "Reinforcements are 6 months away at best," came the reply. "You're on your own." Richards slammed her fist on the console. Then she turned to Emily, and the look in her eyes was pure desperation mixed with barely concealed anger. "What did you do? What did you wake up down there?" Before Emily could answer, every screen in the command center flickered. The image that appeared made everyone in the room go silent. It was an alien, but not like anything humanity had encountered before. They looked almost human at first glance, tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer between silver and gold. But their eyes were too large, too knowing, and when they moved, it was with an unsettling grace that suggested their bones didn't quite work like human bones. "People of Earth Colony Kepler 442b, the alien said in perfect English, though their mouth movements didn't quite match the words. "I am Ral Sen, High Seeker of the Karate Communion. We come not as conquerors, but as pilgrims. We seek only to speak with the one who awakened the Codex." Tyler, who'd been standing beside Emily the whole time, whispered, "How do they know it was you?" The Codex's voice echoed in Emily's head, invisible to everyone else. "They scanned the installation. They detected the genetic bond between us. They know." Ralsen's enormous eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at Emily. "We have searched for 10,000 years. We have followed every legend, every fragment of ancient text. We have lost entire generations to this quest. And now, finally, a founder has returned. Please, speak with us." Governor Richards looked at Emily. "It's your choice. But remember, if this goes wrong, 3,000 people are counting on you." No pressure, Emily thought bitterly. She nodded. An hour later, Emily sat across from Ralsen in the colony's largest conference room. The alien had come down in a small shuttle, alone and unarmed, which the governor's security team had found either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Up close, Ralsen was even more unsettling. Their movements were too smooth, their attention too focused, like a cat watching a mouse. "You don't look like the pictures," Ralsen said softly, studying Emily with those massive eyes. "Pictures?" Emily asked. Ralsen gestured, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed a progenitor, one of the ancient humans from the Codex's visions. Tall, perfect, radiating power and confidence. Nothing like Emily's average height and perpetually exhausted appearance. "This is what the founders looked like in the old records," Ralsen said. "Beautiful. Powerful. Divine. You are." They paused, searching for words. "Diminished." "Thanks," Emily muttered. "Great for my self-esteem." But Ralsen wasn't trying to be insulting. They leaned forward, genuine confusion on their face. "What happened to you? To all of you? The founders were gods who walked among stars. Now you struggle to survive on a handful of worlds, using technology that is barely better than fire and stone compared to what you once wielded." Emily felt the Codex's presence in her mind, warning her to be careful. But she was tired of secrets. Tired of lies. "We fell," she said simply. "We destroyed ourselves because we became monsters." Ralsen recoiled like Emily had slapped them. "No. That's not what the texts say. The texts say the founders ascended. They moved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. They promised to return when the galaxy was ready for their wisdom." "Your texts are wrong," Emily said flatly. "The progenitors didn't ascend. They committed collective extinction because immortality turned them into sociopaths who saw all other life as property." The alien stood abruptly, their chair scraping against the floor. "You lie. You are a pretender. A false founder trying to keep the sacred knowledge for yourself. I'm telling you the truth. Emily stood too, frustration boiling over. The Codex showed me everything. Your ancestors, my ancestors, they were all seeded by the progenitors. You're right that we're connected, but not the way you think. We're not gods. We're the children of gods who chose to die rather than continue being evil. Ralsen's skin flashed through colors, purple and red, emotions Emily couldn't read. 10,000 years, they whispered. My people have devoted 10,000 years to finding the founders. We built our entire civilization around this quest. We sacrificed everything, believed in nothing else. And you're telling me it was all a lie? That our gods were monsters? Emily felt a pang of sympathy. She understood that feeling, having her entire worldview shattered. She'd gone through it herself just days ago. I'm sorry. But you need to know the truth before you go any further. Further? Ralsen's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? You came here for a reason, Emily said. You want me to unlock something. The restoration protocols. That's what your legends call it, right? Ralsen nodded slowly. The protocols that will awaken all the sleeping codexes across the galaxy. That will restore the Founders' technology and bring back their wisdom to guide us all. Emily asked the Codex silently in her mind. What are the restoration protocols really? The Codex's response was grim. A doomsday weapon. The progenitors created it as a failsafe, a way to purge the galaxy of all spacefaring life if they ever lost control. If activated, it would turn every Codex installation into an automated war machine. Billions would die. Emily's face must have shown her horror because Ralsen stepped closer, concerned now. What is it? What did the Codex tell you? The restoration protocols aren't what you think they are, Emily said carefully. They're not a restoration. They're a weapon. A galaxy-killing weapon designed to wipe out civilizations. Ralsen laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. Of course you'd say that. You want to keep the power for yourself. Humans always were selfish, even in the old stories. I'm not lying to you. Then prove it, Ralsen challenged. Let me speak with the Codex. Let it tell me directly that everything my people have believed for 10,000 years is wrong. It doesn't work that way. The Codex only responds to specific genetic markers. It won't talk to you. How convenient. Ralsen's skin was flashing angry reds now. You claim to be a founder but look nothing like one. You claim the protocols are dangerous but won't let anyone verify. You expect me to take your word, the word of a stranger, over 10,000 years of my people's faith. Emily could see where this was going, and she didn't like it. What are you planning? Ralsen walked to the window, looking up at their ships in orbit. I came here hoping for cooperation. Hoping the returned founder would share their wisdom freely. But if you won't help us willingly, we will find another way. Are you threatening us? I'm telling you reality, Ralsen said coldly. We have 4 to 7 ships in orbit. You have a barely established colony with mining equipment and civilian transports. We don't want violence. But we've come too far to turn back now. We will have access to that Codex, one way or another. Governor Richard's voice crackled through Emily's earpiece. Emily, get out of there. Now. But Emily stood her ground. If you force this, people will die. Maybe lots of people. Is your faith worth that? Ralsen turned back to her, and for a moment, Emily saw genuine pain in those alien eyes. My entire species has devoted itself to this quest. We've structured our government, our economy, our culture around finding the founders. If you're right, if it's all been for nothing, then what are we? What's the point of the karate? We built ourselves to be worthy servants of the divine, and you're telling me the divine was never worth serving. Emily understood then. This wasn't just about technology or power. This was about meaning. Purpose. The karate had made the search for the progenitors their entire reason for existing. Without that, they had nothing. You can be more than servants, Emily said quietly. You can be yourselves. That's what the progenitors wanted, in the end. For their children to be free. Freedom without purpose is just chaos, Ralsen replied. You have 24 hours to reconsider. Either you help us access the Codex's full archives and activate the restoration protocols, or we will take this colony by force and find someone who will. I don't want to hurt anyone. But I will do what I must for my people. The alien left without another word, their shuttle lifting off and returning to the fleet above. Emily stood at the window, watching them go, feeling the weight of impossible choices crushing down on her shoulders. The Codex appeared beside her. They will not be dissuaded by words alone. I know, Emily said. So what do I do? Use the weapons? Become exactly what the progenitors feared? That choice is yours, Founder. That is why you were chosen. To face exactly this dilemma. Emily laughed bitterly. Some choice. Become a monster or let monsters take over. Great options. But as she stood there, looking at the colony below, at the scared people who'd come here hoping for a new start, an idea began forming in her mind. It was risky. It was insane. It might make everything worse. But it was the only option she had that didn't involve becoming the very thing her ancestors died to stop. The countdown began at 24 hours. Every minute that ticked by felt like a hammer blow. Emily barely slept, spending the night in the underground chamber with the Codex installation, trying to understand the full scope of what she was dealing with. The Codex showed her schematics, weapons systems, technologies that could crack planets like eggs or turn stars into bombs. The progenitors hadn't just been advanced. They'd been terrifyingly creative in their methods of destruction. Can I actually control all of this? Emily asked, staring at the holographic displays floating around her. You can assume founder authority, the Codex confirmed. Your genetic markers grant you full administrative access to all functioning installations. The weapon systems at this site alone could neutralize the karate fleet in approximately 2.3 seconds. Vaporization would be instantaneous. They would feel no pain. Emily's stomach turned. That's supposed to make me feel better? That I can commit genocide efficiently? I offer only facts, not comfort, the Codex replied. The choice is yours. Tyler had come down to sit with her, bringing coffee that had long since gone cold. He looked exhausted, older somehow than he had just a week ago. The governor is losing her mind up there, he said. Half the council wants to evacuate. The other half wants to fight. Nobody knows what the right answer is. There isn't a right answer, Emily said bitterly. That's the whole point. The progenitors designed it this way. They wanted to make sure that anyone who inherited their power would have to face impossible choices, would have to feel the weight of what they were doing. Sounds like they were real pieces of work, Tyler muttered. They were. That's why they killed themselves. Emily stood, pacing around the chamber. But here's what I don't understand. If the karate have been searching for 10,000 years, why haven't they found other installations? The Codex said there are hundreds of them. The Codex's light flickered. Most installations are deeply hidden or on uninhabited worlds. This site was only discovered because human colonization disturbed the concealment fields. The karate have found 17 installations over their history. All were locked. None would respond to their genetics. What happened to those sites? The karate destroyed them in frustration. If they could not access the divine technology, they ensured no one else could either. Emily stopped pacing. An idea was forming, dangerous and desperate. So they've never actually seen what's in the archives. They've never had proof of what the progenitors really were. Correct. They based their faith on fragments, on stories passed down and distorted over millennia. Then that's it, Emily said, turning to Tyler. That's what we do. We show them the truth. Tyler looked confused. You tried that. Ralsen didn't believe you. Because I just told them. Words are easy to dismiss. But what if I could show everyone? Not just the karate, but every species in the galaxy that might be looking for progenitor sites. What if I broadcast the actual historical records, unedited, directly from the Codex? The Codex's presence intensified. That would be unprecedented. The archives contain information meant to remain sealed. The archives contain the truth, Emily shot back. And the truth is the only weapon I have that doesn't involve killing anyone. If Ralsen and their people see what the progenitors actually were, if they see the atrocities and the madness and the reasons for the silence, maybe they'll understand. Maybe they'll stop. Or, the Codex said quietly, they will see it as a challenge. Proof that the power exists, waiting to be claimed. You could start a galactic arms race. Emily laughed without humor. As opposed to what? Using the weapons and proving that the progenitors were right to fear themselves? Or letting the karate take the installation and activate doomsday protocols? At least this way, everyone gets to make informed choices. 16 hours remained. The karate sent another message, this one less diplomatic. They showed targeting scans of the colony's life support systems, the water treatment plants, the agricultural domes. The threat was clear. Surrender or watch everyone die slowly. Governor Richards called an emergency meeting. The command center was packed with scared, angry people all shouting over each other. Some wanted to fight, though they knew it was hopeless. Others wanted to surrender Emily, hand her over to the karate and hope for mercy. A few suggested running, loading everyone onto transports and abandoning the colony entirely. "We can't just give up everything we built here," someone shouted. "Better to lose buildings than lives," another replied. Emily stood up, and gradually the room fell silent. Everyone was looking at her now, this unremarkable archaeologist who'd somehow become the most important person on the planet. "I have a plan," she said. "But you're not going to like it." She explained the broadcast idea. The room erupted again, but this time with different arguments. Some thought it was brilliant. Others thought it was suicide. A scientist named Robert stood up, his face red with anger. "You're talking about releasing alien technology to the entire galaxy. Do you have any idea what that could do? What if hostile species get access to those coordinates? What if they start fighting over the installations?" "They're already fighting," Emily said. "The karate have been destroying sites they can't access. How long before other species start doing the same? How long before someone figures out how to crack the encryption? At least this way, everyone knows what they're dealing with. Everyone understands the stakes." "You're gambling with human survival," Robert said. "I'm gambling with my survival," Emily corrected. "Once I do this, I become the most wanted person in the galaxy. Every species will either want to capture me or kill me. But at least the colony will be safe. The karate won't have a reason to attack once the truth is public." Governor Richards studied Emily for a long moment. "You're sure about this?" "I'm not sure about anything," Emily admitted. "But it's the only option I have that doesn't turn me into exactly what the progenitors were afraid of becoming." 8 hours remained. Emily stood in the chamber, her hand on the Codex interface. Tyler stood beside her, refusing to leave even though she'd asked him to go to the shelters with everyone else. "Last chance to change your mind," he said. "I changed my mind about 6 times in the last hour," Emily replied. "But I keep coming back to this. The progenitors had all the power in the galaxy, and they used it to make themselves into gods. Then they realized gods without accountability are just tyrants. So they hit the reset button, hoping their children would do better. Well, here I am. Time to prove we learned something." She activated the protocol called Final Testimony. The Codex hummed, a sound that seemed to resonate through the entire planet. Emily felt the installation connect to others across the galaxy, a network coming alive after millennia of sleep. "Broadcasting now," the Codex announced. "All active installations are transmitting." Across the galaxy, on 312 different worlds, Codex installations activated simultaneously. Every species with radio telescopes or spacefaring capability received the same transmission. Not a message from Emily. Not an explanation or a warning. Just pure, unedited historical records from the progenitor archives. They saw the rise of the progenitors. The golden age of exploration and creation. The seeding of worlds with life. The defeat of death itself. And then they saw what came after. The slow corruption. The casual cruelties. Progenitors destroying entire civilizations because they were bored. Using sentient species as lab experiments. Treating life itself as a toy to be played with and discarded. They saw the descent into madness, into a society where immortal beings competed to see who could commit the most elaborate atrocities. They saw the younger generation's horror, their desperate attempts to stop it, and finally their terrible choice. The silence. The systematic destruction of everything they'd built, including themselves. The broadcast lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the galaxy had changed. On the karate flagship, Ralsen sat in silence, their skin cycling through colors of grief and shock. Around them, their crew watched the same records, their faith crumbling in real time. 10,000 years of belief, shattered by 6 hours of truth. Emily collapsed, exhausted, as the Codex confirmed the transmission was complete. "It's done," she whispered. "For better or worse, everyone knows now." The karate fleet powered down their weapons. Ralsen's face appeared on the comm screens throughout the colony, and Emily could see they'd been crying. Aliens crying looked strange, their tears silver and thick, but the emotion was unmistakable. "You were right," Ralsen said, their voice broken. "The founders were monsters. Everything we believed was a lie." They paused, struggling with words. "Thank you for stopping us. Thank you for preventing us from unleashing that horror again." The karate ships turned and left the system without another word, their grand quest ending not with glory but with grief. Emily should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt terrified. Because the Codex was showing her something new. Responses to the broadcast from across the galaxy. And while some species reacted like the karate, with horror and withdrawal, others reacted very differently. 17 species have dispatched military vessels to known Codex locations, the Codex reported. 43 others are forming expeditions. They do not see the records as a warning. They see them as an instruction manual. Tyler looked at Emily, his face pale. What did we just do? Emily watched the star map light up with moving fleets, species racing each other to claim progenitor sites, and realized the answer. She'd prevented one catastrophe by potentially starting another. The galaxy now knew the truth about the progenitors. And some of them wanted to become exactly what the progenitors had been, monsters and all. 6 months after the broadcast, Emily sat in the cramped passenger cabin of a diplomatic shuttle, watching yet another planet slide into view through the viewport. This one was called Sanctuary, a neutral world where representatives from 40 different species were gathering to try and prevent the galaxy from tearing itself apart. Emily had become a reluctant celebrity, the woman who'd opened Pandora's box and couldn't figure out how to close it. "You look tired," Tyler said from the seat beside her. He'd insisted on coming with her, acting as her assistant and bodyguard, though they both knew he couldn't actually protect her from the kinds of threats she faced now. "I am tired," Emily admitted. 3 assassination attempts in 2 months. The Veltorian Empire wants to dissect me to figure out how the genetic coding works. The human colonial government wants to lock me up for my own protection, which is just a polite way of saying they want to control me. And somewhere out there, probably dozens of species are trying to crack progenitor installations open like safes. The shuttle shuddered as it entered Sanctuary's atmosphere. Emily closed her eyes, trying not to think about the fact that just last week, 2 species had gone to war over a contested Codex site. 17 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. All because of information she'd released. The Codex appeared beside her, invisible to everyone else as always. "You blame yourself unnecessarily. The conflict was inevitable. Species were already searching. You merely accelerated the timeline." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" Emily muttered. Tyler glanced at her. "Talking to your invisible friend again?" "Always," she said with a weak smile. The summit was held in a massive amphitheater, designed to accommodate the wildly different physical requirements of dozens of alien species. Emily found herself sitting between a karate delegate who wouldn't make eye contact and a gaseous being from the Mist Collective who communicated through color changes Emily couldn't interpret without a translator. A human diplomat named Catherine Chen was moderating, and she looked like she'd aged 10 years in 6 months. "Let's begin," Catherine said, her voice amplified across the chamber. "We're here to discuss the progenitor crisis and find a path forward that doesn't end in galactic war." A reptilian ambassador from the Scar Dominion stood, their scales rattling with agitation. "The path is simple. These installations belong to the progenitor's true heirs. Those with the strongest claim should control them." "And who decides the strongest claim?" challenged a feline species representative. "You? How convenient that your military happens to be the 3rd largest in the galaxy." The chamber erupted into arguments. Species shouting over each other in dozens of languages, the translators struggling to keep up. Emily watched it all with growing despair. This was exactly what the progenitors had feared. Not that they'd be forgotten, but that their children would repeat their mistakes. Then the Codex spoke in her mind, urgent and excited. "Emily, I have discovered something in the deep archives. Something the progenitors left as a final message. You need to see this." Emily closed her eyes, letting the Codex show her. She saw progenitor scientists in their final days, working frantically on something. Not a weapon. Not a defense. Something else entirely. They didn't just fragment themselves physically, the Codex explained. They fragmented themselves genetically. They took their consciousness, their psychology, their very nature, and scattered it across their descendant species. Every sapient race carries pieces of what the progenitors were. Emily's eyes snapped open. "What are you saying?" "Humanity inherited compassion and curiosity. The karate received determination and faith. The Veltorians gained analytical thinking. The Scar got strategic planning. Every species received different gifts, different aspects of the progenitor psyche. None complete. All necessary." Emily stood abruptly, interrupting a heated exchange between 2 ambassadors. "I need to speak. Please." The chamber gradually quieted. Hundreds of eyes, some human, most not, focused on her. The Codex just showed me something, Emily said, her voice shaking slightly. Something the progenitors left behind that explains everything. They didn't just seed worlds with life. They seeded species with pieces of themselves. All of us, every single species in this room, we're carrying fragments of progenitor DNA and psychology. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some skeptical, some intrigued. They knew what they'd become, Emily continued. Immortal beings who'd lost the ability to empathize, to create, to care about anything beyond their own power. So they didn't just destroy themselves. They rebuilt themselves. They scattered their best qualities across dozens of species, hoping that if we ever came together, we'd be better than they were. That we'd have their strengths without their weaknesses. A karate delegate stood, the same one who'd been avoiding Emily's eyes. How does this help us? We're still fighting over their installations. Because the installations can't be used by any single species, Emily said. The Codex just confirmed it. I have found authority, yes. But it's incomplete. I can access basic systems, but the truly powerful technologies? They require cooperation. Multiple genetic signatures from multiple species, all working together. She gestured to the Codex, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing genetic lock mechanisms that required input from dozens of different DNA types. The progenitors built a safeguard, Emily explained. They made it so their children would have to cooperate to access their greatest achievements. No single species can do it alone. Not humans. Not karate. Not anyone. We have to work together. The Scar ambassador hissed. Or we simply take samples from multiple species by force. You could try, Emily said calmly. But the Codex tells me the locks require willing cooperation. Living beings, present and consenting. You can't just use stolen DNA. The technology reads intent, reads consciousness. It knows the difference between cooperation and coercion. She took a deep breath, preparing for the part that would either save everything or destroy it. I'm proposing something radical. I'm going to use my founder authority to permanently encrypt the most dangerous progenitor technologies. The weapons. The world killers. The consciousness manipulation tools. Everything that made them monsters. I'm going to lock it all away. The chamber exploded with protests. The Scar ambassador was shouting about humanity trying to monopolize power. Others were demanding their right to access their creator's legacy. I'm not finished. Emily shouted over them. I'm going to lock it away, and then I'm going to fragment the unlock codes. 47 pieces, scattered across 47 different species. No single species can unlock the dangerous technologies alone. You'll have to form a coalition. You'll have to agree. All of you. Catherine Chen stared at her. Emily, that's insane. You're talking about fundamentally restructuring galactic politics. I'm talking about survival, Emily countered. The progenitors had all the power, and it destroyed them. We can't repeat that mistake. So I'm making it impossible for any of us to become what they were. We cooperate or we get nothing. And what about the beneficial technologies? Asked a delegate from the Harmonious Collective. Medical advances? Transportation? Energy production? Emily smiled for the first time in weeks. Those aren't locked. The Codex has something called Eden Vaults. Archives of progenitor art, music, science, philosophy. The good parts of what they were. Those locations are being transmitted to all of you right now. Free access. No restrictions. Learn from their achievements. Just not their weapons. The Codex began broadcasting coordinates. Throughout the chamber, delegates received data on hundreds of Eden Vault locations, repositories of knowledge that could advance every species by centuries. You're dividing their legacy, the karate delegate said quietly. Keeping the dangerous and giving away the beneficial. I'm giving us a chance, Emily corrected. A chance to be better than they were. To learn from their mistakes instead of repeating them. Over the next hour, the chamber debated furiously. Some species accepted immediately. Others threatened to find ways around the locks. But gradually, a consensus formed. The alternative was war, endless conflict over installations that would ultimately destroy them all just as it had destroyed the progenitors. Finally, Catherine called for a vote. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. The Sanctuary Accords were born, establishing an international coalition to oversee progenitor sites and ensure no single species could monopolize the technology. Later, on the shuttle back to human space, Tyler asked the question Emily had been dreading. The Codex showed you one more thing, didn't it? I could see it on your face. Something you didn't tell them. Emily was quiet for a long moment. The progenitors left genetic templates. Instructions to resurrect their species exactly as it was, immortality and all. The Codex asked if I wanted to access them. What did you say? I said no. Emily looked out at the stars. We're not them anymore. We're what comes after. Dozens of species, each carrying a piece of what they were, but none of us burdened with being all of it. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're supposed to be the answer to their failure. The Codex appeared beside her, its light warm and approving. The progenitors would be proud. You chose wisdom over power. Growth over resurrection. They'd probably be horrified, Emily said with a laugh. I just gave away their empire to their children and told everyone to play nice. Perhaps, the Codex agreed. But they gave you the authority to make exactly this choice. In their final days, they hoped someone would be brave enough to ensure their mistakes died with them. As the shuttle jumped to FTL, Emily thought about the galaxy ahead. There would still be conflicts over the Eden vaults. Some species would try to break the encryption on the weapons. The Sanctuary Accords might fail. But for the first time in 6 months, she felt something like hope. Humanity and 4 to 6 other species now had access to thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. They had art and science and philosophy from a civilization that had touched the stars. And they had a choice. They could fight over what remained, or they could build something new. Something better. The Codex's final broadcast had gone out to every corner of the galaxy, a simple message in thousands of languages: the founders are dead. Long live the inheritors. Emily closed her eyes and smiled. She wasn't a founder. She was just a human who'd made an impossible choice and somehow survived it. And that, she thought, was exactly what the progenitors had hoped for. Their children, imperfect and mortal, choosing compassion over power. Choosing tomorrow over yesterday. Choosing to inherit the stars not as gods, but as people learning to be better than the gods who came before. The galaxy was messy and complicated and probably heading for more conflicts. But it was alive. It was growing. And for the first time in 75,000 years, the shadow of the progenitors was finally lifting. Emily Brooks, unremarkable archaeologist turned accidental savior, leaned back in her seat and let herself rest. She'd done what she could. The rest was up to everyone else. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly how it should be.